Perfect. We're good. So, good morning. After you first log into the IND Solution Online software, this is the page it's going to take you to. This is the dashboard. The dashboard has a variety of things to look at and to see, starting with our toolbar here across the top. You can click this to access returns. You can click to view returns that are ready to e-file, checks to print, appointments, and ready to pay. Now, the difference between ready to e-file and ready to pay comes down to really just kind of one thing. So ready to e-file means you have marked the return complete, you have processed the payment, but you have not transmitted the return. That's what ready to e-file means. Ready to pay means you have marked the return complete, but you have not processed the payment. So, and that'll make a little bit more sense when we get a little further into the actual return process. Checks to print and appointments is pretty self-explanatory. Now, on this message board, we will post things that are generally industry-specific, things from the IRS, updates to the software that apply to everyone. There's never anything in the message board itself that is account specific. It's just general software or general IRS specific. On the right-hand side here, you have the reject return summary. That'll give you a list of your federal rejected, your state rejected, bank rejected. If you have any MEF alerts or message lists, things like that. You can actually click this blue link to get a list of those returns that are rejected or may have an MEF alert. The daily return summary really is kind of what it is. It'll track you as you go through each day. How many returns were processed in that day. Same thing with the e-file summary. E-file summary is going to give you an overall total of what's been accepted, what's been rejected, the number that are transmitted, the number that are queued. So it's just a kind of a mini report for you to be able to access. Now, generally, when I start training in this software, I like to start at the top left. And so we'll start up here where it talks about last visited and tax year. And so this tax year you'll see is 2022 because we've already rolled to tax year 2022. But if you need to access prior years, for example, you need to do a 2021 return or a 2020, all you're going to do is click log into prior year, select the year that you want to go to, and then click log into prior year site. This will take you over to tax year 2021 or 2019, whatever it is that you need, so that you can come in and actually create returns or review returns if you need to. As you can see, I have returns up here, and you can see that those are there as well. Up here, we've got the live chat button. Live chat will connect you to our live chat so that you can chat with somebody in support if you need anything at all. Having it built right into the software makes it really convenient for you, especially if you've got a customer in front of you, to be able to just join into a quick chat, ask your question, and get the help that you need. The remote support will take you to where we will give you a session ID, and we can connect to your computer remotely. So we've built that into the software as well. I'm going to skip the quick account setup for the moment. We're going to come back to that in just a second. We've added tutorials this year that are actually directly in the software. So if we click tutorials, it'll take us over here. And for example, if we need to know how to set up the signature pad, we can click this and it will take us over to a YouTube channel that will walk us through how to set up the signature pad. These tutorials will be expanding likely throughout the year in the years to come. So we'll continue to add things to the video tutorials as we get them finished and get them actually imported into the software. Going back now to the quick account setup. So we're going to jump back over here to individual, and then we're going to go to quick account setup. Quick account setup is where you're going to be able to add preparers, adjust your pricing. These are the two things you generally will do in here. You may also need to do bank enrollment, for example, may show up in this window as well. Adding a preparer is pretty straightforward. It's pretty simple. You click the button that says add new preparer. You're going to create a username. Now that username does need to be unique across the system. If you get a message that says this username is already in use, it doesn't mean that someone in your company is already using it. It means someone using this software is using it. So you may need to add some numbers or something like that to that name to make it a unique name. You'll enter the password and a password hint, and then you're going to enter in their information, the first name, last name. You want to make sure that you enter their PTIN, phone numbers, email addresses, that kind of thing. Under this prepare type, you've got a few options. Mostly, you'll be selecting registered tax return prepare. If you have data entry people, you would mark them as data entry only. But I will share this bit of advice with you. If your data entry people are doing anything beyond filling out the client intake information, they need to have a PTIN to be listed as a registered tax return preparer. The rule for the IRS is if they enter any information on an IRS form, that be a W-2, a 1099, a Schedule C, a 1040, they need to have a PTIN. It's kind of that cut and dry for them now. As we go down to the bottom, now some of these other things are things that you can fill in as you need them. If you've got a power of attorney information, if you've got PIN signature numbers for those particular states. As we get down into the bottom, this is where we get into user options and user privileges. Now, user options are ways you can restrict what a preparer is doing. For example, if you want to have your preparers only see the tax returns that they are the preparer of, then you would answer this question: do you want to list all of the taxpayers to this user as no? That will then restrict them to only seeing the returns that they are the preparer of. If you want them to be able to see everything, then you want to answer this yes. This allow user to section is where you decide what they're able to do. By default, they're not able to delete client records. And by client records, we mean tax returns. They're not able to delete firm records like bank enrollments, things like that. I will show you how I generally set it up for preparers who operate under me, but you may need to adjust this depending on what your level of confidence is, your level of trust is in that particular preparer. I generally do not give them the ability to delete anything. I do give them the ability to modify the invoice pricing. This allows them to add additional charges or adjust, maybe using a discount. Do give them the ability to file amended, print tax returns, email. Those are the four that I generally do. My advice to you is never click this box. If you check that box, they will not be able to print at all, regardless of what it says up here. They will not be able to access the print configuration window. I also do not give them the ability to change the preparer in the return. But again, that may be something that you need to do. On the user privilege, you can give someone administrator level access, which means they have access to everything. I will show you the things that I have set. But again, you may need to adjust this for you. Client gives them access to see client files, right, to open tax returns. That's probably something that most preparers are going to need. E-file, if they are going to be transmitting returns, then they will need e-file. I don't let my preparers transmit returns until I review them, so they don't have that access. I do give them access to letters so that they can send post-session or pre-session letters, things of that nature. I give them access to forms and tools. And the primary reason I give them access to tools is so that they can access the estimator, which I'll show you guys in just a little bit. So that's generally the setup that I use. Again, this is not an end-all be-all. This is not the way you have to do it. You're just going to want to make sure that you're setting this up based on your level of trust in that preparer. Okay. We get into the firm setup. Most of this information is going to be filled out for you. However, there are a couple of things I want to point out. Starting with over here on this right-hand side, if you have an EIN, uncheck this box and enter it here. When we're setting up your account, we don't know if you have an EIN or not. We don't have your EIN. So we mark everyone as self-employed. Just make sure that you make that adjustment if need to. Taking a step back on the preparer setup, the admin preparer, the PTIN field is required, but we do not know what your PTIN is when we set up your account. Please make sure that you go back and edit this. You do not want to file on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. The IRS will have an issue with that later. So as we go through the firm setup, the next step will be going to pricing. So in the pricing setup, you can set this any way you want to set this. So in the pricing setup, you can use a fixed rate for all returns and set a flat rate amount. You can set it price per form. And as you set the price per form, you'll see right here, we have main forms, schedules, other forms, worksheets, or you can do show all, or you can even sort them by form number. For example, if I wanted to look specifically for the 8082, then I could do that way. Or you can set the price manually after every return, which means before you go into the payment section, it's going to ask you, what do you want to charge the prep fee? That's how I have mine set. So I'm going to continue to leave it set that way. The same thing applies to states. The only slight difference, you still have fixed rates. You saw manually, and then you have per form by state. But we also add in the ability for you to charge by each individual state. So if you want to charge more for California than you do for Arkansas, then you can adjust that here. I, again, set everything on mine to set price manually after state return. You can add predefined discounts. As you see here, I added a veterans discount of $50. This allows you in the invoice to very quickly grab that discount and apply it when you modify the invoice. Same thing with the additional charges. You can add those in as well, and again, use them to adjust the invoice pricing pretty quickly. Now, the invoice config, this is pretty simple setup for you if you haven't already done this. In the invoice number prefix, my advice to you is put the first 5 letters of your company name. In the starting sequence, put the tax season year, so 2023. Put the city where you are located and the office location, and then check this box that says check here to show detailed fee disclosure for bank products. That's a pretty vital thing that I personally use quite a bit. It allows me to kind of break down the fees for each individual customer and have them sign off on it. The only other thing that I will advise you to do is do not check this box where it says check here if you want to treat all bank payment as invoice until it's fully paid. It can be a little confusing if you're not set up to do it that way. And it creates a lot of extra work for you because you have to go in and clear those invoices after you get paid by the bank manually. There's no way for us to clear them on a mass scale. You'd have to do them one at a time. So my advice is always leave that box unchecked. Okay. So now we're back to the dashboard. And what I want to do is start by showing you guys the client section. So we're going to go over here to the client section. You see that I do not have any returns, right? So we're going to go ahead and create a new return. And to do that, we're going to click New Return. Now I'm going to create a return that exists in the prior year so that you guys can see how that carry forward comes through. Now you can do these on a mass scale or you can do them one at a time. It's entirely up to you. I'm going to show you what it looks like when you do it one at a time. So when I enter that social and I get to this screen, then it's going to ask me, do I want to do a simple import or comprehensive import? And up here at the top, it tells you what the differences are. And the big difference between the two is, will it pull the amounts forward or not from the W-2s and 1099s? Now, for those of you who are new to this software, which is probably everybody in here, the conversion only pulls your client data from the client data sheet in that old software and the dependent information. So basically anything that was on that client data sheet, we can convert that. So any of the W-2 information outside of the EINs is not going to show anyway. So I would advise everyone for the current year, just hit simple import and then hit continue. This will take you straight over. And now it's in and we are on the client manager is what we call it, or manage returns. And from here, we have our toolbar across the top, right? We can edit this return. We can print this return. We can view the input, which basically I'll show you gives us a read-only version of what's inside the return currently. So you see I can't type in this field. It's just a read-only version so that you can review it. I could delete, I could put a password on it. I could book an appointment for that if I have the appointment set up. I don't. I can send them emails from here. If I wanted to send them, let's say, a pre-session letter, I could mail and update and send that email address directly, or email, sorry, directly from the software. I can add notes or check notes. If they're ready to sign, which they wouldn't be at this point, that's the signature section, which we'll go over again. My tax office. So if I wanted to send them a remote signature link, or if I wanted to give them access to the client portal, I could do that as well. If I wanted to send them a text message, I could do that as well. So all of these things exist across that top, right? And as we're looking at the client manager, you'll see that we have some information that's available to us: personal information, contact information, some income statements, others. And then we have this practice return button. So what practice return allows you to do is mark that. You're able to click practice return and basically create a clone of that return so that you can, for lack of a better phrase, and I think you guys will kind of know what I mean when I say this, you can play around with the return. You can change their filing status, you can add dependents, you can see how whatever changes you're going to make affect the return without actually editing the main return. So you're not having to remember what you changed. You can just go ahead and make your changes in these practice returns, and you can create as many of these as you want. So that's a function that we added this year, so that you guys could be able to, again, for lack of a better word, play around with the return without actually affecting the original return, right? So now I'm going to go ahead and jump into this return since most of the information is already filled out for us. And I'll show you what that client data or what the personal information sheet looks like. There are two input modes. I'm going to focus on direct input. I think that is the most user-friendly input. If anybody specifically wants to see interview mode, we can look at it, but I will tell you it's very TurboTax style, very very DIY style. It asks a lot of questions, which could be great for your younger or newer, less experienced preparers. So looking at direct input, when we get in, the very first screen that we're going to be on is the personal information sheet. This is all pretty standard stuff, right? So as we go down, I want to show you, you want to hit save. If you hit save on any screen that has required fields, you will get these red question marks that will indicate to you that required information is missing. So in this case, I need to answer the primary ACA question. Did they have health insurance through the marketplace? I'm going to say no for the sake of this. The rest of this stuff at the top is all pretty straightforward, right? This is all stuff we've done before. Same thing with the spouse information and the address information. Now, I do want to point out one thing in this section, which is if they have an email address, I would enter it. Collecting email address is vital, not just for sending tax returns or copies of returns or copies of documents, things like that, but it's also vital for your marketing efforts. You want to make sure that you're email marketing to your customers, even if it's something as simple as sending a birthday email. Customers tend to connect with those kinds of things, and it will be beneficial for your business in the long run. The second thing is in this daytime phone number field, we have a cell phone option, or we have home, right? We have home, work, or cell. If you choose home, you will not get the opt-in for text messaging, and you will not be able to text them. So if it is a mobile device or a cell phone, you want to make sure that you mark it cell, and then check the box that they opt in to receive text messages. So if this box is unchecked, that text message button that we saw out in the client manager will not be there. And that's a good indicator that This is why it's not theirs, because you're missing this box. The resident state section here will fill out by default based on the address provided above. If that is not correct, for example, let's say someone moves to Texas in February, but they lived in Louisiana all of 2022, then just come change the resident state, select what it is, and it will add a resident state tax return automatically for you. And I'll show you what I mean. So if I come up here, let's go down, let's do Louisiana. And we hit save. Oops. You'll see as it's processing, what it's doing is building a Louisiana state return. And if I revisit, it's going to mark me as a full year resident. The reason for that is because I marked that I was a full year resident of Louisiana on the personal information sheet. I'm going to change this back to Texas, and we'll move back down a little bit further. If you want to generate the tax forms for your clients when they see them, for example, when they are printed, you can check that box and it will actually generate Spanish version of the forms that have been translated. Not all the forms have been translated. For example, I don't believe the Schedule C has been translated yet, but I know the 1040 and all of the schedules associated with the 1040, Schedule 1 through 3, have been. So that is one thing to kind of note. Now, in this section, if your customer wants a direct deposit, enter the information here. If they don't, leave it blank. It's that simple. The way the software works is we will pull this information. We use this information to determine what the refund type is. I know some of you may have been used to putting the refund type on the 8879. That's not what happens in here. We assume that it is going to be a check or a direct deposit based on the information in the return. If you fill out direct deposit information, then they will get a direct deposit. If you put the check, then they will get a check. Like if the direct deposit information is blank. Now, when you go to a bank product, and I'll show you guys that if possible in just a little bit, there they have options specifically to choose check or the advances. Specifically, this section specifically is talking about how you want the IRS to fund it if they're doing a non-bank product return, for example. However, if they want a direct deposit from the bank, you still want to enter the direct deposit information here because it will carry over to the bank application, and that saves you time in the long run. So if we save here, I move down to the next section, which is additional info. Now, the additional info section is where you're going to verify identities and get driver's license information. So in this case, I'm going to say yes on the taxpayer, and we're going to get that ID information. Issue dates.
I'm sorry, Kevin, this is Joanna. I just have a quick question. How did you get to this additional information? Where did you click? I missed the mouse when you moved around there.
It's over here on the left-hand side under all forms.
Got
It's
it.
the second one on the personal information.
Okay.
So we'll go down. We're going to do the same thing for the spouse in this particular case because that return has a spouse. Then we get into the identity verification, which is a requirement, if you will. The IRS does want you guys doing these things in terms of verifying the identity of the person that is filing the tax return. They should have a valid photo ID that you can match to their face. If for whatever reason they can't, there are alternate ways to verify the identity. Essentially, they want you to treat it the same way the bank does if someone tries to go cash a check and they're not an account holder, right? They want 2 forms of ID in a lot of cases. That's what they want you guys doing on these remote verifications. If that person is not physically in front of you, they want you getting 2 forms of ID. So we built this into the software so that you could stay compliant with what the IRS is. So in this case, we're going to say that this person was in person and that they have a valid government ID. And so you would check these questions that apply. If they didn't, then you would get secondary things. In the remote, it's the same thing, except you're going to have 2 forms of identification. You're going to have a government ID and a financial or utility account. So now that we've saved, now we can move on to dependent information. So on that left-hand side, we're going to go to dependents. We're going to click Add New, and we're going to start filling out the dependent information. Oops. Now we default a lot of information in this bottom section specifically. We assume that if you're claiming a dependent, you want to claim them for EIC, and that you want to claim them as a dependent, that they are eligible for child tax credit, these things. We also assume that they live with you for more than 6 months and that it is likely 12 months. If for whatever reason any of those are different, just change them. You can adjust these at any point. We also answer some of these questions back here when it talks about those EIC questions. Do they have a valid social? Can anyone else claim them? Did they live in the United States? And then you have the ACA question. Pretty straightforward stuff. Nothing's overly complicated. I do want to point out one thing to you, and I'll show you guys that in just a second here. We're going to adjust this for a second. We're going to file head of household just so that I can show you. We adjusted this and changed it. When you file head of household, someone must be the head of household qualifier. That person is not always a dependent. In some cases, it absolutely isn't. In a lot of cases, it is. So I would tell you that if someone is filing head of household, you want to make sure that if they're adding dependents that they are going to be claiming, that you mark the first one as HOH qualifier. If you don't mark this, you will get a verify error saying that someone needs to be marked as the qualifier for head of household. So I just wanted to point that out. We'll keep this as it is in terms of the filing status. We'll keep it as head of household, and we'll just kind of continue forward. So we've entered all of their client information, and this right here. So what I have done so far is perfectly okay for your data entry people. As we move forward, that's where they're going to need that PTIN if they enter anything on a W-2, which is what we're going to enter next. So to add forms, you have a couple of options. You can use the all forms, and you can go down this side and you can scroll through these forms and find the form that you need. I find the most efficient way is to just come up into this form search and type W-2. That's what I'm trying to add as a W-2, so we can go add a W-2. When we search for W-2, we're going to get anything that has W-2 in it, whether it's the Virgin Islands statement, which if you get one of those, just send them to H&R Block. Like, don't do that return. That's way so much work. Anyway, so we'll do a regular W-2. As you can see, I already have one in here, so I'm just going to edit that one. But if you click Add New, that will work too. You just click Add New, and then you're going to fill out all of the same information that you normally do on a W-2. And so we're going to go down into this state section so that you guys can see another way that state returns are added to the another way state returns are added to the tax return. So we got a Georgia and a Delaware here. So we're going to put a little bit of this money in, let's do 2000 in Georgia. And we're going to put a little bit of this money in Delaware. So when we save, you're going to see that Georgia and Delaware get added to the top of the states here. And when we go look, they're both going to be marked as in full year non-residents. And the reason for that is because we listed our resident state as Texas on the personal information sheet. So the software goes, then you're a non-resident of these other states. If for whatever reason they are listed as a part year resident, that's fine. You can come to this page and just make those changes and make those adjustments. States are significantly easier in this software than almost any software I've seen for this reason. You're not searching to find out what you need to file. And every state is very different when it comes to state returns or non-residents, part year residents in particular. Some states have completely different main forms that you'll need to sign, that you'll need to complete. Others have schedules. Some have checkboxes on the main form. This eliminates all of the guesswork in the way that this has been designed and created. So we'll go back to the federal. And we want to go, so we've added our W-2, we've got our W-2 added. Well, this client brought us a 1099 miscellaneous, or a 1099 NEC, or a 1099K. We're going to focus on the 1099 NEC. Now, I'm going to show you, if we go search for 1099, I can type today, you'll see there's quite a few. But if I search a little bit more narrow, it'll give me the 1099 NEC. As you see right here, it says you must create the Schedule C, E, or F, or Form 4835 prior to entering the 1099 NEC. You always want to add your schedules first and then your forms. So let's go add a Schedule C. So we're going to come over here, we're going to type in schedule, and we got our Schedule C. So I already have one on here, so I don't have to add a new one, thankfully. So we'll go edit this so that you guys can see. The business code section is very easy. If you click pick from list, then you can select. So you just choose the main business category, general merchandise store, whatever it is, and then you hit save after you select that, and you'll see that that business code is now changed. So as we go down, we get into income, right? So we're going to click the 1099 NEC here. We're going to click the 1099 NEC here, and that will take us over to that screen we were previously on. Now we can do add new. And so we'll add new. We're going to enter the payer's TIN. Oh, it can't be the same as mine. Oops. So we'll get this filled out. There is a zip code database. So as you type in the zip code, it'll fill the city and state for you. So now we're going to go to box one. We're going to enter, let's just do 6,000, something like that. Now, the next step is the most important because you can enter this form, but you have to report it somewhere. The easiest way to do this, if you're going to be reporting it to a Schedule C, is to click pick from list. Select that Schedule C that we want to use and then hit use. Now you'll see it's linked to that Schedule C multi-code form 1, which means it's the first Schedule C. If you have multiple, it'll say multi-code 2, 3, or 4. And now we hit save. So we've got that. So now we want to get back to that Schedule C. Easiest way to do that is to click filed forms. Filed forms will show you everything that is attached to the tax return. This is what is attached to the return. This is what is going to be sent by default, right? So we're going to go down to this Schedule C. We're going to edit. We're going to jump into expenses. So you'll see that 6,000 there is now on line 1 on the NEC form. So as we go down into the expenses, a lot of these fields, most of these fields are manual entry fields. So I can type in an amount. I got $150, whatever the case may be here, right? Then we have a couple of other options. like car and truck expenses and depreciation, where you see these grayed out boxes, means these are not really manual entry fields. You can overwrite them, but they are calculated fields. Now, if we want to, let's say, add multiple things together and get a total, that's what we have workpads for. So if I go over here into office expense and I click the workpad, the clipboard icon here, then I can start adding things in like toner. Whatever we're adding in, right? And so when I hit, you see the total amount calculated. When I hit save, that field's going to turn green for you. And you'll see that is an indicator to you that you have a work pad attached to that field. And if we click it, then we can see what we've already entered. This is great in these expense things, especially advertising, office expenses, things like that, so that you can sort of separate these things out. So if the IRS comes asking, well, what is this for? What was this office expense for? You can go, it was for this, it was for this, it was for that, right? And then you can produce the receipts that go with those things. So we're going to focus on car and truck and then depreciation. The rest of these things, again, are manual entry fields, so you'll be fine there. We're going to go down to car and truck, which is down in part 4. So in the vehicle information section, we're going to click add new. We're going to set the date that the vehicle was first placed in service. So that's the date that the vehicle was first used for business. That generally is not going to be 1/1 of the calendar year. Same thing applies in depreciation. We'll show you there. Now, this year we have a split on the standard mileage rate. Standard mileage rate for the first 6 months of the year was lower than it was for the last 6 months of the year. I believe it was 58 cents in the first one. Actually, I could tell you. It's going to count it as a dollar, so it doesn't matter. I believe it was 58 cents in the first, if I remember right. I think it was 58 cents in the first half of the month, or the first half of the year, and then 62 cents, 61 cents, something like that, the second half of the year. So your clients are going to have to separate those out. So it's pre-July 1st and post June 30th. So miles before July 1st and then miles after June 30th. In this case, we're just going to put a little bit in. We're not going to put a ton. And then you're going to answer the questions that you typically answer. If you have commute miles and the total number of miles driven on the vehicle, you want to enter those as well. That plays into the actual expenses in a lot of cases. But if you're taking the mileage, it's not as important. So you're going to answer the questions. And so you've got the standard mileage rate, and it shows you what that amount is. To do actual expenses, you're going to enter the miles, you're going to answer those questions all the same, but you're going to choose actual vehicle expenses, and then you're going to type in those amounts here. You can use the work pad here as well. We're going to take the standard mileage rate because that's typically what most people take. So as we go back down, now you'll see that 664 is added to line 9 of the car and truck worksheet, or the car and truck expenses. Depreciation. So we're going to go now and we're going to depreciate a laptop. Okay. So we're going to hit form 4562. That's going to take us over to depreciation and amortization. We're going to click add new. We're going to click pick from list to make sure that we're reporting this to the correct schedule sheet or the correct schedule. So we hit use there. And then in property information in section 1, we're going to click add new. We're going to put a description of the property. We're going to put the date it was placed in service. That is the date that they first began using it for business. That is not typically going to be 1/1 of 20 of the tax year. So be very careful with that, in particular with depreciation. We're going to enter the cost basis. We're going to say it was a pretty nice laptop, so 2,600. Now, I don't know what the property type is, what the classification is, what the method, what the convention is, not right off the top of my head. So we built a tool to help you do that. Most of us don't know this. So we're going to click help. We click help me. It's going to open a window and allow you to look through all of the possibilities, right? But I don't see computer specifically on here. So I'm going to click this information systems, our gray question mark, to get additional information. So when I click that, it's going to see, it'll give me additional information, and I see that number one is computers. Perfect. So I know that this is the asset class I want to use, is information systems for a computer now. So we hit apply and close, and now the property type, the classification, the method, and convention are completely filled out for me. Because this property was first put into business in 2022, I could take the special allowance. And if I wanted to do that, I could check the box here and take the special allowance. I'm not going to on this particular return, but you could. So when I hit save here, now you'll see that the depreciation amount shows $520. So we'll come down, we'll save, and we're going to go back to that Schedule C just to confirm that everything is here. And there you go, 520 is in that depreciation now. So now we have added everything that we need to add. We have income, we have dependents. I'm not sure what else is missing in this return. So what we're going to do is hit verify to find out. So when we hit verify, you'll see that I have some verification errors, starting with the QBI. Then there's one for due diligence for the 8867, and then the taxpayer PIN. We're going to do the QBI first. I like to work from the bottom up, just my process, but you can work from the top down, however works best for you. So we're going to click here to fix. It's going to take us to the QBI, and this is really easy. Add new, pick from list, save. That's generally how it works for most businesses. If you do have anyone that has the specified service, trade, or business, then you would check that box and then hit save before you actually closed out. Then we'll come down to the bottom and we're going to hit save. Now we can go back to verify, and we see that we have the due diligence. So we're going to click here to fix. We're going to click add new. And now we've got the 8867. So we answer the questions to the best of our knowledge as we go through. Now, question 5 talks about record retention specifically, and this is where the IRS has asked for you guys to start attaching an explanation as to what documents you use to determine the eligibility for these credits. We give you some examples here that you can click on and get these. I'm going to cheat and steal these and use them in the attach explanation. Now, in this attach explanation, this is where you want to enter the documents that you use to determine the eligibility for these credits, to determine the eligibility for head of household, whether the income was verifiable on the Schedule C. So we hit save here. Then we're going to continue to work our way down. Now, I will tell you this, you do not necessarily want to follow my answers on these questions because I am not reading these questions. I am just going through. It is your obligation and your responsibility as a preparer to read these questions and make sure that you stay compliant. Most important question is question 15, where it says, do you certify that all of the answers on this form 8867 are, to the best of your knowledge, true, correct, and complete? And you want to answer that section yes. Now, this section here will not be e-filed with the return, but may be used for your records on how information was obtained. For example, the questions that you asked and the answers the taxpayer gave you, right? So in our return here, we've got a single father. So one of the questions we absolutely have to ask is, why is the mother not claiming them? And so we can type that in. If I can type. Oh, she's in prison. Okay, that's a good answer, right? That's a good reason why they wouldn't. So any of the questions that you ask, any of the information that they provide to you, whatever it is, type it into this box. And the reason we're going to do that is for two things. One, it keeps your own record retention, but as well as we're going to put them in a position where they have to sign off that that's what they told you. So you want to mark who the information was obtained from. We're going to say the taxpayer, and then we're going to generate this worksheet for the taxpayer's signature. I'm going to save, and I'm going to show you guys what that form actually looks like. If we come up here to view print, which is where we can go, we can preview this return at any time from the forms on the right, or we can actually look at this. And where is it? 8867, prepare note. When we look at this, it says, why is the mother not claiming the defendant? She's in prison. It tells us who it was obtained by and when, and there is a place for them to sign that says, by signing below, you verified that the above information was provided by you and is true and accurate to the best of your knowledge. This is a valuable page because if the IRS comes back to them and they go, well, I didn't tell them that, you have verifiable proof that they did in fact tell you that. So when the IRS comes to you and says, well, they're saying that they didn't provide you this information, that they didn't tell you this, you go to that prepare note and go, no, they absolutely did. And they signed on this date saying they did. They cannot, there's no way for them to back out of it now at that point. So now that we're done, right, we finished the 8867, we're going to hit verify. Our last thing is to enter the taxpayer PIN. So we're going to click here to update. We're going to click auto generate PIN. By default, this stuff should be filled out for you at the top. You want to leave this on e-file using practitioner PIN method. You want to hit auto generate PIN, entered by ERO, and then save. If there's a spouse, you'll do the same thing for the spouse. Auto generate PIN, entered by ERO, save. So now that we've saved, we have no more verify errors on the federal. We have none on the states. Normally, this is where we would go in and we would mark the return complete. I can't do that because we're not through the 2022 year yet. So I can't mark this return complete to show you. But what I am going to do is jump to a prior year return that I can mark complete, or one that I have already marked complete. So you'll have a complete button up here at the top. If you click the complete button, then you'll get this window that says, are you ready to mark the return as completed? Are you ready to mark the return as reviewed? Now, here's the difference between completed and reviewed. In order to process the payment section or add to the bank application, the return must be marked complete. In order to transmit the return must be marked reviewed and the payment must be complete. So to be able to transmit the return needs to be marked completed and reviewed, and you must have completed the payment section. And I'm going to show you guys what the payment section looks like in this year because I can't show you in the current year. So after you've completed the return, your next step is to get paid, right? The return is complete, so now we need to get paid. And actually, I can do it here. I'm just going to work my way around it. So you'll get this start payment button. If this is grayed out, it is likely because the return is not marked complete, right? And it will tell you up here some warnings, right? The return needs to be edited before we're actually able to transmit it. It's telling you the e-file option is not available due to payment not completed for this return. We have not completed the payment, the client payment section, and the return is not marked reviewed, so we cannot e-file it, right? So we're going to click start payment. That's why I can't do it. Okay. Let's jump back to the prior year. So when you click start payment, let me see if I have one I can start. I think all these are done. Let me go. Let me clear this return real quick so that I can show you guys what the start payments looks like. Oh, I have no income. You know what? Forget it. I'm not going to do that. It's too much work in there. That return is nowhere near ready. So when you click Start Payment, you'll get an option up here that says Add Invoice, Add New Invoice. It looks just like this. Mine, it's going to ask me to set the amount. I'll hit Continue, and then I will get this screen where I can modify the charges. So I can come in, I can select the discount and apply it, or I can add a discount manually, add additional charges, same thing here, right? It will give you what the total is in prep fees. Now you have two options down here at the bottom, non-banking and banking. Banking is exactly what it is. It's a bank product. So you select banking, you hit continue. I'm not going to be able to get to it because this is not a real return. But when you go to banking, then it will give you the options for how the bank product is, right? Do they want to check? Do they want to apply for the advance? Those things. And then you'll be able to finish out the bank application and get all the way through to the end of it. Okay. In non-banking, it's just as simple. You're going to enter how they paid you: cash, check, money order, credit card, whatever the case is. In this case, we're going to say cash. My advice to you is on this question here, where it says, do you want to mark this invoice as completed? Always answer no. The reason for that, I'm going to show you, is if I answer this yes, I can no longer edit the client payment. It is locked, which means you would have to call us and we'd have to clear the invoice if you ever needed to make a change. Subjectively, if I went to this one and I did edit payment, I can still edit the invoice because I did not mark the invoice complete. So if I say no and I save and continue, I can still edit this. So if that customer comes back after leaving, or you've processed this and they go, wow, you know what? I think I do want to try to get an advance, or I do think I want to try to, I just want to go ahead and have have it taken out of my refund. If you've marked that invoice complete, then you're going to have to contact support either through live chat or on the phone, and have us get an engineer to reset or clear that invoice. So never mark the invoice complete. Just kind of remember that. So once we have marked that we got paid, then we have a couple of options now. We can either transmit this return now, or we can print, we can get signatures, whatever the case is, right? Before we jump into that, though, what I want to show you guys is the DM docs. You usually will start this. You can start this from inside the return, or you can do it from the client manager. It's a matter of just sort of your preference. I always do it inside the return because I'm already in here. So I can go to DM docs, and you have a couple of options. You can scan documents if you have a webcam scanner, or a webcam scanner, rather. It does need to be recognized by your computer as a camera, not as a scanner. If your computer recognizes a scanner, unfortunately, it won't scan directly into the software. However, you can still upload documents. So if you click upload documents, you can choose the file path, for example, and I've got some stuff over here. So I want to add an ID, for example. So I can say ID. I can also determine whether they can view the documents in the client portal, which I'm going to show you guys in a second. And then we can click upload document. And now you'll see my sweet boy's driver's license is here, and it's attached to the return. And we have it marked so that the taxpayer can actually view this document in the client portal. So these are all options for you guys to go paperless in this. If they email you something, upload it. So that's how the DM docs works. So we're going to close this. We're going to go back here. My process is this: complete the return, get paid, have them sign. Then I email them a copy of the return and transmit the return. So to get their signatures, you have a couple of options. You can go to signature here, and they can sign using a signature pad or the mouse. Or you can have them do it via remote signature or the client portal or the mobile app, any of those options. So we're going to click save here. Oops. I'll just close it. My tax office looks a little bit different than the standard. Let me see if I can jump back to the prior year and see if it's here. Yeah, that's what I figured. Let me see if it's on this return, maybe. Yeah, this one already has a client portal. Okay, I will try my best to show you exactly what it looks like, but I'm just going to create a new return quickly. So when you go to My Tax Office, you're going to get these two options. You're going to get the client portal, where they can access the client portal, which gives them full access to everything. They have dashboard, they can view forms, they can upload documents, they can sign electronically, they can send you messages, or they can do a remote signature. I'm going to show you guys what remote signature looks like. So we're going to do continue here. We're going to do it via email, but the process is not any different. Whether it's by email or text message, it's identical in its process. Nothing is different at all. So we're going to send the link via email. The link is good for 24 hours. It does only send one link. So if it's a married filing joint return, they both do need to sign at the same time. At present time, we don't have the ability to split those. It is something that we have in the pipeline for future builds of the software. So we click send link. It's going to tell you that the link is sent. Assuming this is active, I have to be honest, I do not know if mine is active right now. So I don't know if people can sign yet. Oh, they can. Okay. So I'm going to drag this over here so you guys can see. So this is what the email will look like in the inbox. They'll get an email right here that says, hey, here it is. So they click to access, and then it's going to ask them for their personal information. Give me one sec, because I have no idea what this personal information is, which I actually can't even do. Hang on. I gotta put in a name here. Okay, perfect. Now I can do it. Okay. So we know it's test and test. And the social, that's a really good question. I don't know what that social was. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 5, 8, 8. Okay. That was 1/1 of 1981. So they validate themselves. Right now, what it's doing is generating the forms. This obviously has no real forms to it, but then they would go to, once the return is marked complete, then they'll be able to actually complete the remote signature. I'm going to show you what that looks like on a real actual return. I just wanted to get you through that piece to show the initial. So we'll go back to our original return here. And we'll do my tax office. We're going to send a remote signature link. Oh, geez, I don't even know what that is. Let me grab that inbox. Here we go. One second. 82. Okay, so this is actually a completed return. So they'll be able to view any of these forms. They can click it, and you see we set this one for Spanish, so that's what's coming up. It's coming up in Spanish translation. When we go back, why is this thing in the way? Go away. We'll close out. So they're going to mark that they've reviewed the return. They're going to hit done, and then it's going to ask them, do you want to electronically sign your tax documents? They say yes, continue. They'll click start to sign, whatever, right? Save signature, and then mark it complete. Now you guys saw it's done, right? And that's how fast it comes into the software. There is no delay. There is no waiting. It comes in as soon as it comes in. It does not take any time at all because they are connecting to the same place that the return is. They are basically logging into a very scaled down and very limited version of the actual software that you are using. So there is no delay when it comes to remote signature. So now this return is done, right? They signed it remotely. I'm good. I have their signature. So now I want to get my copy of the return, and then I want to send them theirs. So my copy of the return, I go view print. And because they signed electronically, I don't need to print this physically. So I'm going to set prepare a copy, and I'm going to click export to document manager. When I do that, it's going to move it to DM docs, and I will have a signed copy of the actual tax return. And if you come down here, you'll see that that tax return is now signed by them, and I have a signed copy of the return. So my copy is now saved. So I want to send them their copy. And so if I hit view print again, it takes us here. And the way I do it is I email everybody unless they specifically request a paper copy of a return. That's my process. I let them know, okay, so we've got your payment. I've got your signature. I'm going to go ahead and email you a copy of your tax return. Most people just go, okay. The ones who go, no, I'd rather have it printed, then I can just come down here, select customer copy, and hit print selected forms. And you'll see it will open a copy of the return that I can print. And at this point, I can save the PDF or I can print it. Now, when we email a copy of the return to the customer, we select customer copy, and then we click email customer copy. It's going to come up with an email address. And I'm going to show you guys what this looks like. We click send email. And I can close this. Let's see. I'll wait for our copy to come in. There it goes. So you'll see they'll get an email that looks like this that says your copy of your 2022 tax return. The PDF is encrypted, but it gives them the instructions here that tells them how the PDF is encrypted, how the password is created, right? It's the first 4 letters of the primary taxpayer's first name. If it's less than 4 letters, then only use what's available, followed by a month, day, year of primary taxpayer date of birth in the format of 2-digit month, 2-digit day, 4-digit year, followed by the primary taxpayer's last 4 digits of the social. So, for example, if the taxpayer name is John Doe, the date of birth is 4/9/1983, and the social is 400/00/1001, then the password will be John, all lowercase, 04/09/1983/1001. I will tell you, it's important for you guys to learn what this process is because it will save you a ton of grief. And one of the ways that I handle this is after I send them a copy of the return, after I email them their copy, I click text message and say, your password is, and then give them what that password is. That will save you some grief, right? And in this case, the password would be this. If I would say, password to unlock the tax return is, and then send message. And that, like I said, will save you a ton of time and a ton of headaches because now it's been sent. Additionally, because we track the text message that are sent, you have a record of it now. Text messages are here, and you can see it was sent by me on December 28th at 11:49. But I also have the password. So if I need to copy it and send it to them again, I can send it to them again. And so when they get it and they come in, they click test. They're going to enter that password and they're going to hit submit. And then there's their copy of the return. And they get the whole thing. You don't have to worry about trying to print anything. So that's my process. So go back to the return. The last thing then would be for you to transmit the return. I can briefly show you transmit as best I can. You click transmit now. And in this case, we are holding prior year returns in the filing center until the IRS actually opens for them. They are shut down for tax year 2021 right now. So if you had a return that you wanted to send right now, then you could do, I would like to queue this return and then hit continue. Otherwise, in the normal year, you'll get a message there to select what you want to transmit and then transmit it through. Okay. So I'm going to answer a couple of questions that are in the chat real quick. Someone asked specifically about doing practice returns. No, there is not a practice return section for this, but you can just come into the software, enter the practice returns. As long as the return is not marked complete, then or the payment is processed rather in particular, then you can always delete the return. So you always have the ability to delete the return if you need to, but we do not currently have a place for you to just kind of create practice returns. Someone asked, can we send a copy of the tax return just in PDF without any password? Sure, you can do anything you want to do. Just understand that if the IRS catches you, they are going to fine you for it, and it is going to hurt. They are not playing around with these emails anymore. The password needs to be there. It is for your taxpayers' protection. But if you want to do it, then you can save it as a PDF and then email it to them. But I am not advising you to do it. In fact, I am advising you against it. So does anybody have any additional questions? Anything else?
Kevin, I have a couple of text messages about the mileage. Are you able to do a quick review again for the mileage? Just go back and kind of do it again so they could follow along and go a little bit slower.
You want me to go slower on mileage?
Yeah, they were just saying it was going a little bit too fast. They're trying to take notes as you showing them.
Well, I mean, this is pretty straightforward stuff. This is not any different than any other software, guys, when it comes to vehicle mileage. You're going to go to the exact same place we were going before. We're going to go down here into part 4 of the vehicle information. You're going to click add new if it's a new vehicle. You're going to put the date it was placed in service, which is not 1/1 of the calendar year. In most cases, it's going to be the date the vehicle was first used for business. Then you're going to enter the total miles driven for that vehicle before July 1st and after July 1st. Okay. The reason for that is because we have a split on the mileage. The mileage rates are different for the first 6 months and the last 6 months of the year. Okay. So we'll enter some mileage in here. Now, technically, you are supposed to enter the commuting miles and the miles driven, but in particular, it doesn't really affect the standard mileage rate. Where that has an effect is on the actual vehicle expenses. So if you are doing actual vehicle expenses, you want to make sure that you fill out A, B, and C of 44. Okay. Then you're going to answer the questions. Answer 45, 46, 47, 47A and B, and then the follow-up questions, which is, did you use 5 or more vehicles? Did you lease the vehicles? Because that will change everything. So then you click save. And when we come back down, you'll see that that is now added to the car and truck expenses here. If I go delete this first one.
The appointment is on the 11th of January.
If I go if I delete that one, then you'll see that 668 is referencing down here as well.
Can we do and which I saw that it was at the bottom, if you're just doing depreciation alone?
Yeah. So I need to go back through depreciation.
This was mileage, right? And how about if they're not doing mileage, they're just doing strictly depreciation?
Depreciation on a vehicle or depreciation on a printer?
On a vehicle, on a vehicle.
Okay, so we'll come back into the 4562 we already have. If you're doing vehicle depreciation, then you're going to come and answer these questions, which is, do you have evidence to support the business investment use claim? Is the evidence written? Then you'll click add new, description of the vehicle, the date it was placed in service. Again, the date it was placed in service is the day it was first used for business, not 1/1 of the 2022. Okay, so then you're going to enter the miles again. So we'll do 1,500 miles. If we did 500 there, you'll see that the business use goes down to 75%. That is going to affect the standard mileage amount if you're doing it that, right? You can enter it in this section as well. And that's what I was saying. You can enter it here. You can enter it on part 4, whichever way you want to do it. If they're just doing the depreciation piece, then they're going to add it into up here in the same place. So I'm going to go back to our laptop, for example. I'm just going to make adjustments to it. And let's put this at 35,000, right? So if I do help me, automobiles, apply and close, then you want to enter the vehicle type, right? It's a passenger automobile weighing 6,000 pounds or more. Yeah, I mean, we're just going to say that. Was the vehicle acquired after? Yes, in our case. And so again, they can take the special allowance if they choose to. If we do not, when we hit save, it's going to give them the depreciation amount. And when we go back down, I'm going to delete this asset, but when we go back down and we hit save, we go back to this Schedule C. Now you'll see that the depreciation is showing that $7,000 from depreciation. Okay, someone asked me to go through a remote signature.
Yeah.
So do you want me to go from the very beginning all the way through again, or is there a particular part of remote signature you're missing?
What I saw in the message was at the remote signature and exporting the signature. And then another question was, I got a direct message there saying about the how to do a practice return.
Right. I answered that question earlier. There isn't a way to do a practice return. We don't have a specific section for practice returns. So if they want to do a practice return, they could do it exactly the same way I did it. Just go in and create a return with a dummy, even and dummy information. When they're finished with it, just make sure that the return is marked complete and that they have not completed the payment, and you can delete it.
Can you show them the quick estimate? How to do the quick estimate?
Sure. So we're going to go back here. Let's go back to the dashboard. And we're going to go to Tools. And then you can go to the estimator. And you have a quick estimator here where you can just type in information. Let's just say 1, 1, 1.
I have a quick
1.
question. On the quick estimator, is that just for like if somebody just walk in our office and just want a quick estimate real quick instead of us having to go through the whole return?
Correct. Yeah, and this actually still needs to be updated. I need to write that back up, but let's throw in some dates here. We're just going to do this person and withholdings payments 958. So if you just sort of answer some general questions here and we do save and continue, then it will show you what the estimate is for their refund based on possible filing statuses. If they want to then start a return, you can click Start New Return, and it will take you right to the screen so that you can start the return. If you have someone who is wanting to know what the bank fees will be without you needing to go through it, although you can do it this way, you can just plug in information, for the first and last name. The key piece is this, and that's figuring out, if their refund is $5,200 and my fee is $350, and I hit calculate, then it will generally, it'll give you what those fees are and what they can expect as an estimate. If they want to print it, you have the ability then to print it as well.
Kevin, you know how in the desktop you have the file option that you go to when you finish a return to kind of give a breakdown, see a breakdown of the fees? It's that the same here on this one when you finish a return?
No.
So when you finish a return, there somewhere we could go to see the fees before we give them what the total is?
Yeah, right here on the bank quick estimator.
So I gotta get out and come back over here.
Yes, I mean that's the short answer. Or you can launch into the return, and add, or launch into the payment section, add the payment, mark it as banking, and then and then go through, and it will give you what the fees are listed at the very top.
Okay.
Okay, so let's start over on the remote signature. You're going to click My Tax Office. You're going to select Remote Signature Only. Click Continue. In this case, I'm going to send it to an email, but the process is exactly the same for your taxpayers, whether they do it on their phone or they do it on a computer. You're going to click Send Link via email. Click Send Link. It's going to tell you that it was sent successfully. You're going to get an email here that says, hey, here's the remote signature. They're going to click here to access. They're going to enter their first name and their last name. Then they're going to enter their social security number. And they're going to enter the date of birth. what is it? 2/3/1980, 1998. It's going to generate the forms so that they can review them. They're going to click the links to review the forms. Then they will say, I have reviewed my return, then click done. Then it's going to ask them, do you want to electronically sign your tax return documents? They're going to say yes. Then they are going to click continue. Then on the signature screen, they're going to click start. They're going to sign. They're going to click save signature. Then they are going to click mark completed. Then they are going to close. And when we go into the return, into signature, we will see that their signature is there. You're going to click select all if those aren't already selected. You're going to click save signature. You can close that window. Now to put your copy, your signed copy into DM Docs, you're going to click view print. You're going to click prepare copy. And then you're going to click export to document manager. It's going to tell you that it was exported to document manager successfully. You say okay. You hit close. And when we go to DM Docs, now you will see your signed copy of the return is here. You can either print it, you can download it, or you can leave it here. And it will be here if you ever need to go get a copy of that return. Now, does anybody have any more questions on remote signature?
I don't think so.
Okay, and so Freddie asked about EIC. I'll show you where EIC shows on the return. There is a summary, so I'm not sure why you're under the impression that there's no tax summary. There is a summary. It is here, and it will break down all of the payments. It breaks down the income. It has an income summary report as well. So I'm not sure what summary it is you're referring to, Freddie. Secondarily, if we go to the 1040, you can see on line 27, that is where EIC will show if it calculated. You asked specifically about keying stocks. You're just going to do that on the 8949 or the Schedule D, whichever way. And depending on how it is, you can do add new. If it's a 1099B, if it's a 1099S, if it's neither, then you would have to indicate whether it's long or short, and then complete this information in here to mark that through or to enter those. Now you have a couple of options. When it comes to the mortgage forms, I assume you're talking about a Schedule A. And so if we go to a Schedule A, there isn't a mortgage form necessarily to fill out. You're just going to enter the information into lines 8A, or line 8, specifically the interest you paid in that particular section. That's all there is to it. There's nothing more than that there. So does anybody have any other questions, or are we good?
I think we will be sending this recording. Kevin, do you have an idea, or that's something you could let me know later, or when this will be ready?
I'll post it tonight. I don't know exactly when it'll be ready, but I mean, it'll be ready by tomorrow.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, everyone, thank you. If you have any more question, I think someone just did. Where can we find the 1098 mortgage form?
It's not going to show in the form statement because the 1098 the 1098 for the mortgage is reported directly to the Schedule A, which is going to go down here in line 8 of the Schedule A, and in particular, line 8A of the Schedule A, where it says home mortgage interest points reported to you on Form 1095 or 1098A. If you have more than one 1098, add them together and enter the total. All right, are there any other questions? I mean, feel free to unmute yourself if you have a question you want to ask, or you can type it into the chat, whichever you want to do.
Hey, Kevin, I have a quick question. This is Joanna. When I first logged into the software, I guess the STU was very large and my dashboard couldn't fit nicely like the way that you're presenting it here. Is there a way within the software where I can kind of zoom out of it a little bit? Because I've tried kind of doing it on my own computer, but it's the whole screen that kind of shrinks, but not necessarily like where I can see everything like you have here.
You're better off doing it in the browser. Depending on what
Okay.
browser you're using, you should
It's
have
Google.
options to zoom
Yeah.
in or zoom out.
Okay, I gotcha. Okay.
And by doing that, truthfully,
Mhm.
it will adjust. The software
Oh,
will readjust itself
it
as
will.
best it can.
Mhm.
Yeah, as best it can, it will readjust itself. And you can zoom in or zoom out.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you.
No problem.
All right, Kevin, I think we're done. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Okay, you guys, thank you for attending. And again, let us know. You could text us if you have any further questions.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Anna.
No problem.
Thank
You guys
you.
have a great day.
Okay, you too. Bye-bye.